Ever since the creation of the combustible engine, gasoline cars, which been close to almost 100 years of gasoline cars, uh, the world has been pegged to the world economy is pegged to the energy supply that that controls the world transportation systems and controls the fossil fuels that are used in manufacturing as far as energy with manufacturing plants and companies. They're all hooked to fossil fuels. And this started, like I said, when they created when Rockefeller created gasoline, when Henry Ford created a combustible engine, as far as initiating gasoline vehicles. And so the whole world got addicted to fossil fuel vehicles. And so ever since this, the Middle East has been warmongered genocidally by the seven oil sisters or the seven sisters, mainly America Oil Company, Britain Oil Company, and Dutch oil companies. They've been warmongering the Middle East. Roosevelt made an accord with the House of Saud to peg the trading of oil with currency of American greenbacks. In other words, the world was controlled because World War II left the world in ruins as far as the European Union was in ruins. So America pegged the trading of oil with the House of Saud in American currency. So while the European Union was beginning to be fomented, meaning constructed after World War II, they were really dependent on America. America started mass production to to export to Europe and to get Europe economy going after World War II. And so the Eurozone was pegged basically to, to the American currency, through the British pound and the rest of the Eurozone currency uh, was pegged in this type of style of fashion economically. So the rest of OPEC nations were from Africa, South America. So they were kept subverted, like Iran, Venezuela, and these African regions that are members of OPEC were kept toppled by Western powers. They were kept impoverished in order to control Saudi Arabia, meaning America through the petrodollar to control Saudi Arabia. They kept these other OPEC members crippled as far as nations of OPEC supplies, like Venezuela, Iran, Iraq. Uh, these oil wars, in order for America to float the energy dependency of the world and keep the world dependent on the petrodollar, they had to subvert these OPEC nations and keep them subverted and poor and impoverished, and thereby directly deal with Saudi Arabia to control the union of OPEC that is pegged on a petrodollar, America greenback. And so that gave that advantageous positioning of America doing that gave America more purchasing power and made America as a sole superpower, economically and militarily wise. And to this day, the system is set up so that Europe, the Eurozone, and America prop up their currencies to the controlling of this type of system of controlling the world energy supplies through their armies and through their banking systems. And and so that's why I'm against this conflict energy. It's not only bad for the planet environmentally, but it derives nations into conflict and into war. Look at right now. Russia is now a member of OPEC plus one, and they're denying natural gas to Western Europe because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So now Europe is kept out in the cold, out to freeze for this winter. And now that's causing hyperinflation in Europe. OPEC plus one now raising their prices is causing inflation uh, in America. So you see how these scenario war games and strategics to control the dominance of the world hegemony by keeping the world pegged to gasoline guzzler vehicles throughout the world. You see these the outcomes of these type of conflict energies of keeping the world addicted to natural gas and gasoline guzzlers. It just has a chaotic effect overall. And so now, between America and the Eurozone, they're trying to undermine Russia to put in a Russian leader that is more lenient to Western Europe in order to control this energy, natural gas. Like the same way America has undermined OPEC nations in the third world, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Latin America, kept them impoverished and in poverty, was to control the outflow of the petrodollar, so that when they sold petroleums, they had to do it through the petrodollar. Now, America and NATO are trying to undermine Russia for to put a lenient president in there that would be more lenient towards Europe, Western Europe. And I bet you that if they get to do that, it is to control the energy supply and this type of world that depends on not on fossil fuels. That's how political science strategies of foreign affairs work. The politicians don't like to talk about situations like this because it's too taboo as politicians to talk about political science and strategic energy uh, leveraging of regional powers of politics. So politicians don't like to talk too much like a professor of politics in a university. They don't like to look at it and talk it and break it down strategically and study it. Like if you was going to a college studying politics or political science. So at the end of the day, every country, the world I'm trying to free up the world transportation systems, trying to make them free and independent of each other with this electric car design that I'm working on. That electric cars, you never have to plug them in while you're driving them. They're self-charging themselves. They're uh, self-sufficient. So while you drive, you can drive anywhere. You don't have to worry about plug-in stations. When you get when you park up your car, regardless of how far you've driven, by the time you park up your car, the batteries are fully charged. So you can have electric cars that you never manually has to charge them, and they're totally clean energy, renewable energies that don't depend on gasoline or natural gas. So for these reasons of how I'm against the fossil fuel industries controlling the supply of energy and using it as levers of power to have hegemonies over the world. Putin, I'm not. Putin is doing the same thing, using natural gas as a leverage. Iran does the same thing. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, America, they all do the same thing towards each other. They try to use energy as leverage in political and in the international affairs. And so it's just so chaotic, and it's breaking nations into power struggles. And I'm totally against this type of energy. Not only does it do harm to civility of societies of nations, but it also is chaotic towards the global uh, environment. It is destroying this planet, polluting this planet, literally causing the weather formations to exacerbate themselves. So that's why I'm creating this type of technologies of electric cars, and I'm streamlining the technology when 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 I start negotiating with my technologies to bring it to the forefront. Because at the end of the day, I believe all of the world transportation systems with my technology will be better off than worse off. So imagine vehicles, like I said, you never have to plug them in. You can drive as far as you want, and by the time you park it up, it's fully charged. And so you manually don't have to worry about plug-in stations and being stuck without the electric car being charged. You never have to worry about paying electric bills. You never have to worry about, like I said, plug-in stations, and you never have to worry about gasoline. And so all the nations of the world, transportation systems, so be free and independent and sovereign, self-sufficient. Think of all the money people will save throughout the world by not being handcuffed to a gasoline station pump like these oligarchs want y'all to be. Like these oligarch of hegemonies of politicians and nations want y'all to be handcuffed to gasoline pumps. And they use it as a lever of weapons to topple nations and cripple their economies by denying them access to fuel. And all these nations that supply energy uses this type of fossil fuels in those type of fashions to meet their political ends. And the rest of the world has to suffer for it. So I'm trying to revolutionize and liberate the world from this oppression. Think about how much throughout the world, if you never had to pay to drive your vehicle again, you never had to pay to fuel your vehicle or to charge your vehicle. Imagine how much money people will save throughout the world. And they can reinvest that money in feeding their families and fixing their houses and building their way out of poverty, out of poverty. So at the end of the day, the world will be better off. Imagine never being held captive, the world transportation to any type of extortion by nations that supply energy. To say, no, we will stop the flow of gas, so we will cripple your transportation systems, thereby causing your economy to collapse. I want to do away with that type of detriment. That's why I'm so against this type of conflict energy of fossil fuels, keeping the world suppressed into a hegemony. So I'm working on technologies not only to transform and free and liberate and make the world rise up from poverty and make them self sufficient. Think about how much people throughout the world spend on gasoline, fueling their cars. These are trillions of dollars globally that will be saved by regular people not having to fuel their vehicles, not having to be handcuffed and enslaved to fossil fuels and the corrupt leaders of world orders that like to keep them enslaved because it serves the interests of a nation, regional powers, and their political ambitions of foreign affairs. So I'm trying to break those shackles to all humans from being handcuffed to these gasoline pumps. Think about how much work humanity will save yearly, never having to charge your vehicle with gasoline, never having to pay electric bills to plug in your vehicles. Basically, the vehicles can run for free when it comes to energy. And all of humanity can save all that money and pay for your health cares, pay for your food, pay for your shelters. And y'all can rise up and improve your living standards. That's what I'm trying to do with my inventions. Is to make the world better off with my electric car designs, to liberate the world, to save the planet chaotically being destroyed by carbon emissions. That's what makes me have passion for what I'm doing.